and welcome to Connected. I'm Divya Gopalan. So, when was the last time you got a pay rise? If you're in Taiwan, the answer might be a long time ago. But low and stagnant wages are not just a problem unique to Taiwan. A generation of young people around the world are finding that their pay packages are not near enough to support the lives that they expected to lead. So, why has this become almost the new normal in many societies? And why is it so hard to fix? Well, to help answer these questions, we're connecting to Tyler Prohaska here in Taipei and Elizabeth Angsioko, who is in Manila for us. So Elizabeth, we'll start with you. You're with the Democratic Socialist Women of the Philippines. Explain a little more and tell us how you're connected to this topic.
I am the national chair of the Democratic Socialist Women of the Philippines. It is a national federation of community-based women's organizations, and therefore poverty and economic justice alongside other issues are the major problems that we tackle in our organizations. And therefore issues such as women's work, informal work, and also those who are in other countries working, and also the young people who are having problems with the kind of work they get here are some of the topics that we actually tackle a lot.
And Tyler, you are with UBI Taiwan. That's an organization that advocates for universal basic income in Taiwan. And I want to start with this question to you. I want to talk about the disenfranchised younger generation that feel that they've done all the right things to get their career on track, to get the lives that they want to lead, but yet it's not happening. Can you explain to us the situation in Taiwan when it comes to wages?
That's a great question, and I think it's something that all of us ponder a lot at UBI Taiwan, because we start off with the solution. That's what all brought us all together, was the idea of universal basic income is very compelling. But then it made us kind of think backwards. What is the exact problem in Taiwan that we're trying to solve? And for us, what we've all come together on agreement is that young people in Taiwan are not receiving the type of compensation and lives that they deserve to live, even though they work hard. They work harder than anybody I've ever met. I mean, the work culture here is extreme in many ways. And in spite of that, they are just simply not receiving the types of wages that they should. And so for me, I see it as a structural issue. It starts with education and culture and family expectations that push a lot of young folks into perhaps degrees that they don't enjoy, that they don't feel passionate about, into careers that they don't particularly have a voice in, and ultimately lives that they're not able to contribute to society in the way that they really want to. And I think it's because we don't give young people the voice that they need to speak out and show what they can really do with their skills and their talents, and we kind of wring out that creativity in the structure that we have set up in Taiwan. So what we're hoping is that with some of those structural changes, we can empower people by giving them a platform so that they can pursue the passions that they're actually interested in.
Yeah, and that's definitely something I want to get to a little later. Elizabeth, I see you nodding there, but I want to get you to first listen to this. We spoke to a number of young people in Taipei's Songshan district and asked them if they were happy with their salary, and here's what they said.
I've been mostly working as a part-timer, and I get the minimum wages. This is not really enough to cover the cost of living in Taipei.
Right now I'm looking into jobs in the US, and salary is definitely like a huge component of why I'm doing that. Yeah.
I'm not very happy with my salary now. There's still plenty of room for improvement. But at the same time, I wish the government did more to help young people develop professionally and build up wealth.
Elizabeth, I know the disparity is huge in the Philippines, depending on which area you're in. But say we were in Manila and we were in one of the more business cafe districts and we went out there with a microphone and spoke to some of the young people. Would any of these comments resonate?
Yes, actually, in the last 15 years or so, the industry of business process outsourcing has grown tremendously in the Philippines. And that means that college graduates in our country are basically, they are the ones who are employed by these BPOs. And it's not just about the wages that they're complaining about. There are a lot of other issues because BPOs actually operate along the time zones of the mother companies that actually hire them, and therefore their lifestyles, the workers of the BPOs, their lifestyle is very different from ordinary young people here.
So just to jump in here for our audience, we are talking about call centers that are run from overseas. Yes. We're talking about kind of outsourced work. Okay.
Yeah. That's the one, precisely. And the average age of workers in the BPO industry is about 25. And the latest data is that there are 1.44 million of our young people employed by the BPOs. And this is a huge number because I checked the data last year, 2022, we only had 1.60 million of college graduates. And therefore, what it's saying is that it is basically this industry that absorbs our college graduates. One, there's very limited growth opportunities in this industry because they are contractual. They are hired for a very specific duration. And then because of the lifestyle, because of the work, the heavy workload, the stress is too much. And not a few of them actually have health problems. So these problems actually compound the situation of young workers in the country.
And if I can just ask Tyler about some of the points you made about going back to the whole idea of these college graduates, they go to school, they go to the right colleges, they get the top grades, and then they get into these jobs where they're not getting paid what they think or what they should be. Yet, I feel like it's just generally accepted that wages are going to remain low and we don't see much of a pushback, despite the rising cost of living. Why is that?
So I'd say that it's self-fulfilling in a sense because folks are so overworked. They don't have time to think about alternatives. They don't have time to challenge the system. And their brains are so tired at the end of the day that you can't really push for reform if your life is overwhelmed. So when, I've been involved in a lot of the activism in Taiwan and the scholarship about these issues for 7 years now. And, young people are really enthusiastic about it. But, even in our organization, everybody works their own job. And a lot of the times they can't join in because they're working.
And Elizabeth, in the Philippines, do you see younger people voicing out their concerns more or standing up to the system and calling for change? Or is there the general sense of reticence that this is the way it is and we just have to make the best of it?
I do not see much of the workers in the BPOs complaining outrightly and protesting. Maybe because, they work at night and then they sleep during the daytime. And their time zones is reversed, and therefore it's going to be very difficult for them. They need to have rest also. But there are organizations and there are trade unions here that actually take on the issues of these workers.
Right. So I want you to listen to this report we have from, again, the streets of Taipei, and it kind of explains a little bit the haves and the have-nots and just compares the lifestyles here in Taiwan. Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick went to Taipei's richest and poorest districts, and here's what he found.
This is one of the most expensive neighborhoods in all of Taiwan. Hemmed in by glistening corporate headquarters and malls filled with luxury shops, it is a picture of the economic boom Taiwan has experienced over the past few years. But just like the luxury homes on this leafy boulevard, not everyone can afford to live in this version of Taiwan. Just on the other side of Taipei, Wanhua is a different story. It's the most historic and also the poorest part of the capital. There are more low-income households here than in any other district in the country. Brian Hugh is a local resident and the founder of New Bloom, an online magazine covering activism and youth politics in Taiwan.
It's where the city started, but has been left behind by development. And so despite being the origin of the city, development eventually moved north towards Dadaocheng and eastward towards the East District, towards Xinyi, and so forth. So the majority of the homeless population in Taipei is located in Wanhua.
Wealth disparity and economic stagnation are increasingly worrying problems, with the benefits of economic growth not equally distributed across the population.
That there is a sense of inequality in society that, for example, young people are not making enough to be able to afford homes, that you have to not eat or drink for 15 years to afford a home in Taipei. The wealth that is gained by society, it does not trickle down to everybody, and so it stays in the upper echelons. Even when companies are making money, even when Taiwan has growing exports and so forth, Taiwan was less affected by COVID, and therefore its economy did much better. And so in spite of that, the public does not feel it.
Taiwan bumped up its minimum wage by just over 4% this year, with average wages also climbing nearly 3%. But runaway inflation has more than erased those gains. Real wages in Taiwan actually saw their steepest yearly decline for a decade in 2022. After adjusting for the rising cost of goods, real average salaries in Taiwan have barely changed in over 20 years. This has made attracting international talent all the more difficult.
The general feeling is that the Taipei wages are okay, they're at an average level, but if you're comparing them to places like Shanghai or Singapore, Tokyo, Seoul, they're about half. Taiwanese loses a lot of its best workers because wages in Singapore and Shanghai, for example, are a lot higher. There's a lot of brain drain here.
In many countries, extreme wealth is becoming more concentrated in just a handful of people. And with 9 in 10 Taiwanese workers saying they're unhappy with their wages, this is one unwanted way that people here are connecting with others worldwide. William Chen and Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick for Connected.
Two major themes in that. One is the wealth gap, which I definitely want to speak about. The second is the whole idea of brain drain. Tyler, I want you to first start and talk about Taiwan's brain drain and what that looks like.
I would say that the folks that I meet, the ones that can leave, most of them do leave. And it's because they don't feel that there's an opportunity to develop in Taiwan, even though they want to. I mean, this is a great place. I love this place, and they love it too. But there's just not an opportunity for them to really use their skill set and use their potential. We're letting our best folks go abroad, and we're not doing anything about it. So, and this is true with also the foreign population. I mean, the report mentioned that we were probably one of the best performers during COVID. We were one of the best performers. And that was an opportunity for us to place them and put them into career opportunities, and we should have tried to retain them. We didn't keep them. Most of them went back. So I think it's a real problem that we just haven't recognized that this is an issue. And if we want to solve brain drain, we have to start from the fact that we're just wasting this potential.
Oh, Elizabeth, there's so many layers of that would resonate in the Philippines. And particularly, one, you have your overseas workers, which the economy relies on. Then you have the whole idea of losing some of your most intelligent and most skilled workers.
That's true.
What is the government doing about this? Why aren't they recognizing that this is going to be a serious problem for Philippines and its future?
Well, actually, that report, I can relate with that report very much. Now, when it comes to brain drain, not a few of my friends actually have left because they think that there is no future in the country. And that is very sad because, for instance, we lack doctors, we lack nurses, we lack engineers. So we lack all these professionals. However, one cannot blame them because if they want to have a better future for their families and they can't find it here, then of course it's an option to get out of the country. In fact, many of my countrymen and women have left the country out of desperation. The Philippines is known as a labor exporting country. Unfortunately, the government has, embraced this label wholeheartedly, and it's so sad because to me personally, I think that working abroad should always be an option, but it should not be the only option for Filipinos to be able to live and provide for their families. At the moment, we are one of the biggest labor sending countries in the world, and we are known internationally, very sadly to say, that we are the housemaids of the world and things like that. And it breaks my heart because alongside, they are able to earn some money, yes, but the families that they leave behind, they also have problems here. There are a lot of broken families and children who don't have the parents to guide them. So these are the social costs of migration for work. And what is the government doing? We have very good laws, actually, but as you said earlier, it's one thing to have laws, but another to implement these laws properly. It's not unusual for us to hear that, especially for the women, that our women OFWs actually get killed, raped, abused by their employers. And this is extremely, extremely sad. I don't think that this compensates for whatever amount of money they are able to send back to their family.
Tyler, I want to go back to you. We heard Elizabeth talk about almost the desperation, the whole idea where people feel they have no choice, and the devastation left behind. In Taiwan, there's almost a flip side of this, where the desperation comes from not being able to leave. Can you talk about that frustration for the people who don't have the choice and have to then contend with the situation they have here?
I mean, I'd say that that's the typical situation. Is most folks don't have the ability to leave, and they're just kind of forced to face the reality that there is, rising inflation, as the report noted, and wages aren't going up. I mean, I've been disappointed with the reaction from the government to, push up minimum wage by 4%, which is just almost irrelevant. I mean, it is better than nothing, but we're pushing for something more substantial. We should be following our peers, or our neighbors. They're far and above where our current level is in terms of the minimum wage. So it doesn't make much sense to me that there's this huge fight about a 4% minimum wage increase when inflation is rising faster than that. And what I think is really important to emphasize is, like the report said, the GDP is rising and we have great GDP performance during the pandemic, but it's just not trickling down. I mean, this idea of the trickle down effect, and the government is touting these GDP numbers, it's not helping to the average person. For 2 decades, we haven't seen any kind of wage growth in Taiwan. I mean, it's been devastating for the average person. And if we want to rise up, if we want an economy that works for everybody, we can't be in the culture of conservatism, in a sense, at the business level. It seems like we think we got to squeeze out whatever profit we can from every worker. We have to get every single dollar out of them and put that into the investors, rather than investing in the workers, because that's where the innovation comes from. That's where we build up our economy, is from the ground up, but we've really lost sight of that.
I'm glad you brought that side of things up, in the sense of what the employers, or how they would view things. And I'm not saying all employers, but many of them, this would be the general trend. And I want to take you to some social media. Don't Work Anymore has more than 70,000 followers on Instagram and regularly posts about the less than ideal work culture here in Taiwan. Now, a recent job post shows an advert where the first question in orange says, "Do you like to play with water?" which in Chinese usually means swimming or other water-based activities. It's followed by a suggestion to come and wash dishes. Do you get that kind of attitude there in the Philippines, particularly where you have a very young population entering the workforce?
Well, perhaps we don't see adverts like that But it doesn't mean that it's not happening, you see, because in the country, wages in itself is a problem because we have very low minimum wages, and our minimum wages vary by the regions depending on where the worker is. Across the board, the wages between women and men also differ. For instance, in lower positions, women get 50% less pay than what the men get, and in higher positions, they get 20% less than what men get. So it's a bit unjust, if I may say. And even in the age of digital, employment, businesses, women still get about 20% less than what the men usually get.
I found it amusing because it reminds me of all of the things that Taiwanese are going through with this employment situation. Like for example, the recent problem with folks being tricked to go into foreign countries because they're so desperate, and then they have a whole ordeal over there. That kind of thing is happening way more often than it should. And in a healthy economy where there's normal job opportunities and normal wage growth, you wouldn't have to resort to that kind of desperate acts. So in the one sense, it was amusing that I see employers doing this to attract young people, because I suppose memes are easier than raising wages. But on the other hand, it's pretty devastating because it really symbolizes a lot of what's wrong with Taiwan's economy.
Right. I want to try and we're running out of time here, but I want to try and look at what possibly could be a solution, or maybe look ahead to the future. And Bonnie Ling is the executive director of Work Better Innovations. It's a social enterprise that aims to help public and private actors build a more responsible and inclusive economy. And here's what she had to say.
A transparent wage grid that kind of reflects salary, by number of years of experience, by skill and education. That has a tremendous role to play in workers feeling like they have a future, and they can stay in a place, and less turnover for the company. And it presents a very clear business case for the company to look at these issues of wage in a broader light, in a much longer term frame than just saying, okay, let's do what is the cheapest for production.
So Elizabeth, she's suggesting a bracket with clear pay lines for every level of the workforce, and says that would make a difference, having those distinct levels. Would that make a difference in the Philippines? Is that something likely that could be adopted and implemented?
Our call has always been equal pay for work of equal value, which means that whoever you are, if this is your type of work, then you receive a certain kind of salary, a certain kind of wage. But at the same time, we also need to increase the wages in the country. And as I said earlier, only about 20% are informal employment. We also need to protect the workers in the informal economy, because this is the catch basin of everyone who loses job. They get to go to the informal economy, and the workers there do not have social protection, not protected by laws, and things like this. And therefore, what we're trying to do now is really to influence our legislature so that the workers in the informal economy are covered by legislation. This is so unfair because these are the poor workers, and yet they don't have any protection from government.
And Tyler, is there an informal economy here that kind of makes up that pay gap so people can reach the standard of living that they want to?
So the informal work problem in Taiwan is also an issue. You saw that in the pandemic when a lot of folks, they were denied pandemic assistance because they were not formal employees. There was no record of them. And so, it affects everything from all levels. If you want labor protection, if you're exploited by your employer, if you need assistance from the government, if you don't have that formal employment, then you're not protected in the same way. And these are typically the most vulnerable workers as well, and they're the ones with the least amount of protection. And so, I'd say that this is something that needs to be, again, it needs to be something that's solved in a way from the ground up, because I'm unconvinced that Taiwan has the capacity to do much about this. I would like to see more enforcement, but I just don't think it's possible. And what I mean by the ground up is I really think that we need to, as individuals, come together collectively and push society towards stopping these types of things. And we demand better from our employers. And we need to make an economy built on the fact that we're human beings that need rest. We need time to think. We need to pursue our own passions and creativity. And I think that's going to benefit not only those individuals, but it ultimately benefits society too.
Now, the Philippines and Taiwan, two very different countries, two very different economies, but sadly so many related problems and common problems when it comes to how workers are treated and what the younger generation of workers need to face. Thank you so much, Tyler Prohaska, Elizabeth Angioko. Thank you so much for your time and your insight. It's been great to have you on. And to our viewers, of course, thank you for your company. Stay connected.